Okay, so we've got a rough set out for the two sections there, and now I want to go in and start drawing in a lot more detail. So remember, we've got this line here projected from the floor plan. But now I need to know the thickness of that wall. I've basically guessed it at this point because we can't possibly go out and measure through that window without breaking the glass. So I guessed it before at 300, but you can actually take a measurement, and I've done that. And I'm just going to show you actually the photo here so you can see how we've done that. Right, so you've got there the columns, which you can see come through in between these windows down to the level below. So you can actually go down to the level below and measure the columns there to get that thickness. And then you can also see that the columns on the outside are flush with the beam there, and also flush with the inside skin of brickwork, with the skin that's set back here. So I've got this layer of brickwork that's set back from the outside brick panel here that's projecting, and we'll have a look at that projection as well in a second. And, oh no, actually I haven't shown that, so I might just quickly draw that in so you can see the line there. I'm going to redraw this all in a moment, but just want to go over the main points. So we've got there I'm going to say 150 step down. So I'll just actually offset 150 from there, makes it easy, and then join those together, and then draw a line from here, 45 degrees, and then another line just from the, let's get this right, yeah, from the face of the bricks, so that will be here, down to there. So I just left that bit off, but just want to make that look right, so you know what you're looking at. Goes, so this line here will go, and now what's this distance here? 360, yep, so that's actually from there, so let's just get this right. That's better. Okay, so maybe to make that even clearer, I'm going to draw a line for the column down below. You probably don't need to take it this far, but it'll make it much easier for you to see what's happening there. So column, concrete, projection is the new layer I'm making, and so I'm going to make that another green, and most importantly make the line weight lighter. So then I can bring a line down from either side here. Okay, so now it should be clearer what you're looking at. So this is the column down below this level, so that the columns you can see there, there and there. Some of them are thicker, but that's extra. So this depth, if you look at especially the columns that are exposed down this end, you'll see the true depth of the column, which should be 360. So that's maybe a dimension you might want to note down, or just make sure you realise is the width of that column there, or the depth. And then that edge there lines up with the face of the brickwork here that's set back. Okay, and so then, working our way from there, we can work out the how do we work this out? So we've got the external wall then, using the thickness there, so that gives us this, and then the internal thickness Oh, that's right, it lines up here. Sorry, so I did go the other way. Sorry, I wasn't thinking there. So this here should line up, and so that projection actually is a bit different. Let me just measure that. Sorry. Yeah, so this face here, we can see here, we've got the column face here. So this face here, that should line up. I've got it, oh yeah, that's right. That's it, spot on. Perfect. Okay, so you can see there that I worked it out the other way, but it has still lined up exactly. So this face of the column here should line up exactly with the face of this wall. And so then projecting out from there, you can work out the size of that panel, which then will give you the overall thickness, which is 480. Okay, so I'll go and draw that now in the drawing I've got saved earlier, where I don't have that drawn yet. Alright, so to make it less confusing, I might take out these lines because I know they're not right. So I'm just going to delete those and I'll redraw them. Also, maybe I'll just take this one out as well so it's less confusing, so you know what we're starting with, and that is basically this line here. That's really all we know at first, the inside face of the wall. And then I'll go through the process to work it out again. So using offset, I'm going to go, we're just going to ignore the, we'll include the plaster. So we'll say 120, we're just not going to show it, but we'll include it in the thickness. So I'm going to offset 120 from this line across to the left. And then we've got the concrete layer, floor concrete, and I'm going to draw a line now, also from that inside edge, straight down, and this will locate both the inside of that beam below and also the column that comes down. Right, so then I can fillet these lines together. And now, like I said, we know the width of this this column because we've gone down and measured it. So do you remember what that was? Width of the column? Okay, so that's 360. So that's the one measurement you really need to know. So I'm going to offset 360 from here over to the left, and I can delete this line and then fillet again to join these back together. Now, we've then got another brick wall on this edge. So I'm going to draw a line from there straight up. I don't know the height yet, but that's okay. I'm just going to take it up at pretty arbitrary distance, a metre or so, maybe a bit more than a metre. So what's the standard size of a brick?
110.
Exactly. Yep, so in this direction, 110. So that's what I'll offset, 110. So there. So that gives us the two walls that are closest together. But then we've got the brick panel. Okay, so what I've really drawn there is the brick that's in line with this bit of concrete you can see that's set back from the main wall. So there's a brick back here behind what we can see there, and that's what I've just drawn. Okay, so now I need to draw the panel. So how far do you think the front of the panel is from this edge here? I'll give you a hint, it's 2 bricks. So if it's 2 bricks, how far is it? You'd think so, 220, but then what's in between the 2 bricks? Exactly, 10, so 230. So it's solid brick. It's either double brick, which is 270 with a cavity, but if it's solid brickwork, then yeah, 230 is standard. So that's the right idea though. So adding those together, and then yep, the mortar. So 230 from here to the front. And then because in this case we're probably going to show the mortar at some point, I'm going to offset 110 back from there to the right and just leave that line for the mortar in temporarily to make it easier to draw. Okay, so can you see how I'm really just working it all out based on the little bit of information we know, and then using standard building material sizes to work out the rest. Okay, so now then we've got the projection. Now I don't expect you to go and climb up the building to measure that depth. You can just eyeball it. You know that a brick course is 86 mil. So even just using your fingers on the screen sometimes is a good way of just checking those sizes, and I can tell by using my fingers that piece of concrete below is about 1.5 brick courses, and so around 120, maybe a little bit more, 150 it could be, and so we'll just say 150. We can always make that smaller. Doesn't really matter if we don't get it perfect, as long as we know what size we've done it. We could even try projecting across to here to work it out more precisely. I'd say it is probably 1.5 courses, but we'll just do it 150 to make it easier. Okay, so I'm going to draw a, well firstly I'll maybe just extend this line across to the corner there, and then I'll draw another line on that same layer, floor concrete. So from there I'm going to come down 150, and then with the polar set to 45 I can just snap to the angle I want and fill it. Looks a bit deep, so we can always take that back. I'll show you later. You can use stretch to bring that up, but worry about that later. That's an easy change to make. Okay, so the next thing, well, now, okay, maybe just to make it clear which part I'm cutting through, you can see here that we've got the line that I've drawn passing through the building plan there. And what you'll find when you start doing more detail in your section, that you might then get more information about what the plan should look like. So I can select my plan. Remember, that's an XREF, so if I right click I can choose Open XREF, and it will take me back to that file. And so what I might show you there is a command that you maybe haven't used all that much. And don't worry, if you find this one tricky there, you can do it in the easier way, but this will make it quicker. So my wall thickness there is 300. What should it be? What was that number that I said you should remember? The most important number that I've measured, that we've taken from the measurement down below? 360, did you say? Yeah, that's right, yeah, 360. So the width of that column we know is 360. That gives us the width of the wall without the panels. So that is where this should be. So I'm going to offset 360 from the inside of my wall to the left. Remember, the wall and the column are flush. We can see that here. I'm going to extend that line out all the way. So all the way along now, I've got a reference so I can see how far I need to bring all these things out. Right, now to save me doing a lot of filleting and trimming and all those things, it's possible to use stretch here. If I get the right point, I'm going to start it here. Right, and so there, notice I've gone inside my cavity and to one side of my window. You've got to be precise when you do it this way. And then I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom, press enter, and then snap to the corner of my column, and then bring it over to the left to my new line. Okay, so can you see how it's brought all of that out in one go? You could use move and move all of those lines out individually and then fillet them again, which is probably the way you should do it at first, just to get used to drawing. But after a while, try using tools like Stretch. They do save a bit of time. Okay, so you've got to remember that that still isn't complete, because basically what I've done there is draw the wall without the panels. So the panels I've got in my section. Okay, so I know the panels distance there. So this is again the drawing process. You won't know everything at first when you draw it in plan, and you have to wait until you do some of your section and then come back and do more of your plan. So 480 is the distance to the front of the panel, and so let's get the right drawing. Okay, so I can offset now 480 from this line here. Oops, sorry, not from this line, sorry, from the inside line to the left. And I might copy that in a moment. And then to work out the size of the gap. So would you have an idea how big that gap might be? It's a shame I don't have a picture. I've actually seen from the other side what it looks like, but I just don't have any pictures that show all that clearly. It's half a brick? Yeah, it is, exactly. It's half a brick, you're spot on, yeah. And so it's got mortar either side, and so that means it's 130, the gap. So a good trick there is to draw, firstly I'll get the layer right. So I better make we've got a, yeah, well I'll just use my window projection layer for now. I'll make another one later, but just to save some time you can make the layers better than me. So I'm just going to draw a line from the midpoint of that column and then offset half of 130, 65, either side of that line. And then I can use fillet and join those together. And then, show you a really good trick here. I'll delete these other lines. I can use copy and snap to the corner of my column, and then come down to the corner of this column. And then I can use mirror to flip that line the other way. So that gives me the line down the bottom. And then I can draw another line from the midpoint of this windowsill, and then again offset 65. Trim, or delete that middle line, then trim this and these, and it's done. Okay, so can you see how easy that was once you get used to using those different tools? So there you can see the pattern of the windowsill in this window, which will be identical in the one above. So I can just select these lines, copy, and again snap to the corner of my column, and snap to the corner of the next column. And it should line up then perfectly. Getting rid of this line now at the top. Now actually I think that end's a bit different. It's a funny detail. That one stops, so they've changed that. At this end it continues past the column, but at this end where the brickwork is, it stops early. So you can always just stretch that back like this. There we go. So now here comes the really good part. If you save that file back into the section now, it'll tell me it's been changed, and I can just reload the changes, and now I can see the change in my XREF. And I can project off that. So I just want to make that clear so you know where you're projecting. And what I might do is finish it there and give you some time to do that. And then maybe to finish off these lines, you could put in the windowsill base anyway. We'll do the concrete piece afterwards. So there's a concrete windowsill there. But do you know how to work out the height of the brickwork up to that windowsill? What have you been doing where you've got face brickwork? Exactly. Count the bricks. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So remember, do you remember the height of a brick? 76. But then sometimes you might hear people say 75. And then with mortar, the same thing. You'll hear them say 86, but then sometimes they'll say 85. You might be thinking, well, maybe they're just rounding it off. But really, the reason they say it is because it's neither. It's 7 courses per 600 mil. So a brick rod, when it's used properly, should have 600 mil increments. And think about materials. Building materials often will be divided up into 600s or 300s, which is half of that, obviously. And so that way things will line up. So if you take 600 divided by 7 equals 85.7 whatever. That's the true height of a brick course. Some brickies will actually do them 86 anyway, but that's the way they're supposed to be, if you look at this Jane standard. So that's the reason sometimes people will use those two different measurements, 85 or 86, because it's actually in between. So if you have 7 courses, you can usually just say that's 600. If you've got 12 courses, like we do here, it's usually a good idea to go, right, 12 times 86, 1032, that's not a very good measurement. 12 times 85, 1020, but we know it's going to be more than that because it's more than 85, so maybe 1030 is a good height to actually draw your bricks, draw your sill. So that's what I'm going to say maybe should be your height. Okay, so back to here, offset, 1030, and then you could just trim all of those lines to there. So afterwards, I'll show you how to do the windows afterwards. But at least try and get it to that point. And if you get that done, you can maybe look at showing the inner skin properly as well. So I won't draw that for you. I'll just show you what it should look like. Where are we? This one? So you could have a go at hatching the parts that are cut, which should make it clearer for you as well. The inside and the outside should be cut. And then you can actually draw the bricks for the part in elevation, which is the way you should always show brickwork when it's not being cut. You should show a picture of the bricks with their real size. And you know the size of a brick, so you should be able to draw those. So 76 with the mortar. It's fine if you draw them that size. And so what do you think this blue line might be? And why don't we have a step? Yep, metal, definitely. Old days it would have been lead, these days something else, because lead's poisonous, but yeah, sometimes. Yeah, there's the flashing, yeah, that's right, yes, right on. So, yeah, it's metal, because metal's usually, well, not always, but waterproof generally, if it's the right metal, and they use a bituminous product quite often these days. And then, in this building, we don't have a step in the concrete, so they would need to make sure the flashing is perfect, because otherwise you're going to get water coming into the room. And that possibly is one of the reasons why it has this construction with those panels projecting like that, to help with the waterproofing. I'm assuming. I mean, it could be just decorative as well, and also maybe meant that they could do some of it off-site. I don't really know, but that's just the way it is, and also the fact that it doesn't have a step is really just the way it is. So, as well as counting bricks, what else do you think you could do to check the height of that sill? Go over and measure it. It's right here. Okay, so you should probably do that as well, just to see if what you're drawing correlates to what is actually there. We'll check that again anyway. So anyhow, try to get to at least that point, but then if you get that done, hatch the inside on the outside and then have a go at changing the inside of that exterior bit to elevation.